founder. Yeah. Not just video. Yeah. It's good to know about Pestalozzi.
So I just give the word to Jack Whitehead. We have left on the website the presentation of all presenters. But I think Jack can tell a little bit about himself before we start. But we started, when was it? On Tuesday, and he gave a lecture for our master students and some other members of staff at our college. So we look forward to the continuation today. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Kelly. That's many thanks indeed for the invitation to come and just be with you and talk about some of the things that have been fascinating me certainly for the last 30-some years about education. I was really delighted last night. I don't know how many of you have recovered from the late night, but I learned a lot about Norwegian history, especially pedagogy. Did you like that story about the way the English fleet was defeated in 1665? I've never forgot the pleasure with which that was told. The other one was the story as we were eating about the young boys that were strung upside down. Yes. Yes, the sadistic pedagogy, you know, of the Norwegian history. So thank you for that. I've learned a tremendous amount. What I was hoping to just talk with you in about an hour and 20 minutes, but something which is memorable, something which is useful to you. And it actually builds on what Pestalozzi was saying. And when you think that he died in 1847, and Carrie put the quote up about love and loving, and I don't know how many of you had chance to read it, but it was very powerful. I read it 3 or 4 times this morning, where Pestalozzi was talking about you can't actually understand love or define love from understanding. You've actually got to be engaged in loving. Okay, so you can actually talk about love without any understanding whatsoever of what loving is. You can only come to an understanding of love through loving, through the action, through the activity. And I really do want to concentrate a little today on the values that you hold as educators. Because I suspect that from the energy I've felt in the room at times, you really do love what you do in education. Last night, over dinner, just talking to Tom, it was fantastic, the energy that Tom brings into what he's talking about in education. He clearly is passionate in relation to his love for education. Carrie is the same. And I'm hoping, as you're discussing for this session, that you'll say just a little bit about your thesis, because I've learnt about the modesty of Norwegian researchers. You don't tend to say how good you are. You know, it seems to be a cultural issue here about not really going public on what it is that you do extremely well. So I hope you will say a little in this session just about your thesis. And the other thing I want to really focus on is something from the guitar making and the guitar playing. Now, it was clear that the musicians loved what they were doing. The actual building of the guitar and the actual playing of the guitar. But I just want you to consider a moment what the object of your activity really is. Because if you think of the guitar as your students, then what you're doing is helping to form the lives of individual human beings. So it's rather like the talent that was being brought into the guitar making and playing. You are bringing your values of humanity. And Christine asked about what kind of society do we want at the end of yesterday's session. I think you're actually generating and creating literally the next generation in terms of the society in which we live. So it's rather like thinking of your talents, like the guitar maker and player, but your material is actually the young people or the adults that you're helping to educate. Am I making myself clear there? Because that is what I am interested in. I must apologise that I must be the only person in this room with one language. That you've all got amazing abilities, which in England we simply are very weak indeed in speaking in other people's language. And I have seen your attention and the way in which you have been understanding what people are saying in your second language. So I think, again, you've got enormous talent in this room, which I'd love to encourage you to make public. Because this is my purpose in being with you. And in a minute, I'm just going to pause and just ask, what is your purpose in being here? Do you want anything from this session that I'm with you now for an hour or so? What is it that you want from this session? Because I'm very clear that what I want is to stimulate you to research your own practice as educators. I'm very clear that I want you, and I want to show you how to create multimedia accounts of your influences as educators with your students. Now, at the moment, there will be very few accounts from people in this room flowing through web space that other educators can access around the world. Let me just check. How many of you have got an explanation of your influence as educators with your students flowing through web space? How many of you have got those accounts? We've got one, got two. So in a room of about 50, we have two. Paul, you've got one of yours, and Paul will be talking tomorrow about sustainable communities, and that is really crucial. I'm hoping that I'll show you some of the things that might help in the creation of a sustainable community together for us. Because after this session, we're going to be looking at the promoting of core values, and I know competences are there, but I tend to focus on values through a European network. So that's coming after my talk. And I'm hoping to show you how you could contribute to the creation of those networks, which are sustainable, through the web. But when you think in this room now, the talent that has come from 19 different countries. So from the Council of Europe, with 47 different countries, 19 are represented in this room. We have only two, and one is from the UK as well, he's Paul. So we have only one other person from the 47 countries, yeah, and 19 represented here, that has got a narrative of your work as an educator being made available to others within our European network, and not just European, but I would also want to suggest we should be going global in our communications. So am I clear about what I'm hoping to just really excite you about in terms of the work that I can show you? Now, it will be flowing literally through this space. Now, I know most of you, just in terms of looking at text on a screen, will not actually see this as an electronic portal through which the accounts that I'll show you today, if I just press on one of these buttons here, for example, from my website, this is actionresearch.net. I'll just see that if I can just put up the signs so that you can see it. Now, if you think that this is an electronic portal, and if I just click on this particular section, now what is flowing into this room now, which you can access, are some 30 doctoral theses and some master's theses, which have made available to you, so you can access those. If you've got wireless connection, you can actually see what educators in different parts of the world are actually doing as they try to improve their practice and live their values as fully as they can. So again, I hope I'm making sense. There's an electronic portal flowing into this room so you can just access it. And you can actually just go into any of these and you can just click on them. These are two that I really like. Husband and wife. It was the only husband and wife that I supervised their doctorates to completion. Karen Riding and Simon Riding. And you can go into there because Karen was very courageous. And just look at that first sentence. Can you see this? In this account I explain the shared life that I lead with my husband Simon transforms itself into a loving energy that emerges in our educational practice. Now that fits with what Pestalozzi was saying, that actually you need to show yourself in the sense of loving as a practice before you can actually claim that you understand what love is. And Karen had the courage to recognise that through her relationship with Simon, it provided a lot of sustaining loving energy which she could bring into the classroom with her pupils and actually communicate that passion and love for what she was doing in being with them. And that was legitimated as a doctoral thesis in relation to universities with external examiners. And these doctors that I'm showing you are really distinguished by the way in which so many of them acknowledge the importance of loving within what they do. So what I want to actually focus on is the importance of making available your accounts of what you're doing through the web, so that it's not just coming this way, and the one person, sorry, what is your name at the back that has got something that you've made available? And which country?
It's in Norwegian, so it's only for the Norwegians.
Right.
It's not really...
Okay, but it is for, you've actually made it available. And when you say only for the Norwegians, okay?
Well, it's
Yeah.
for those who understand.
Now again, I think that is very important because globally, I've actually, if you like, developed an international reputation so that wherever I go, and I was giving keynotes in San Diego in the United States earlier this year, also in South Africa, I've been asked to go to Beijing. I've done keynotes in Beijing and also Japan. Now, that in terms of a global network of communication is broader than, you know, when you say just Norwegian. But this is the very first time that I've really felt that in a European context, we might be able to do something together to create a network of educators that can actually influence globally the values that can actually bind a community. Now, I haven't tended in my working life to focus on the European context. And to be honest, part of it is my weakness in language. You know, I did have good interpreters in China and Japan. But the other places that I've been to talk, like America, Canada, Australia, it has all been English speaking in terms of that global influence. Whereas now, I think, from this room, with 17 European countries represented, we could very quickly, over a year or two, communicate and share your values and understandings as educators with the values that actually I think will bind us, because Christine's point about what kind of society do we want, I do think that the core values that are coming in the next session, we will find that we do share an awful lot of core values as educators that we can share and make public. Now, I'm also going to focus on this idea of multimedia accounts, because one of the things that I was very embarrassed about when I started to do it was signing my emails, Love Jack. Okay? Now, the Vice-Chancellor at my university found this quite difficult when she was getting emails from Love Jack. Yeah? But the reason I did it was that a chief technician in the Department of Education called Martin Dobson, he died when he was only 52, and he died of cancer after quite a long illness. And I went to see him regularly. And on the Friday, before he died on the Sunday, I don't know if you've been with people, close ones, friends, lovers, but partners, that he said to me with real energy and fire in his eyes, you know, when you get that sense of vitality and life-affirming energy, even though on the Sunday he knew